Okay, welcome to Valley Strange, episode number 13, I believe. Or 12.
13.
It's 13. It's one of those. No, it's 13, I think. Anyways,
I think it's 13, yeah.
Welcome to Valley Strange. On this episode, we're going to be finishing up our part 3 of the 12th Planet, our Books of the Strange series.
Yep.
So this has been a tiresome journey, and I'll be happy when we're done with this book.
Oh,
we'll be done. When we're done with book
I'm
one.
super happy too because I mean, like now I've read this book like 3 or 4 times, and I'm like tired of Sitchin's bullshit, and you know I'm looking forward to the follow-up episode, which we maybe need to talk about on the side at some point as far as like, okay, Roland, do you want to just find, you know, the developments in archaeological finds in the Sumerian region, you know, that may or not support this? And Ray, do you want to look at like Bible stuff? And Daniel,
And then-
do something else? You know, I don't know.
I mean, like in your case, you've got some of Sitchin's direct references. So like that's that's fucking
I did
gold.
pick up like Kramer's The Sumerians today and checked out some of the like chapter on Sumerian religion and already found like some problems with Sitchin stuff, but
Ray,
that'll be
quick,
for later.
Start binging coast to coast
Yeah.
episodes on Sumerian.
if I have to look up like...
But also excitedly, I found this one book today, and then I sent you guys a picture. It was like a Gobekli Tepe, which I talked about on the first episode of this series, where it's like that site, you know, and the finding of Eden or whatever. So this is potentially like a whole other take on like where Eden may have been, you know, and it's exciting.
Well, you know, if I have to go and look up biblical references, I mean, which version do I go with? The King James version, the New International
I would say
version,
King James, and
Old
then
Testament.
actually like try to like find some of these references because he'll be like, oh well, this and this talked about, but he doesn't like ever cite what passage it's from, which is
I get it as far as Old
irritating.
Testament that like he talks
Well,
about.
Old Testament, sure. Yeah, I
about
guess
it.
King James would be the proper one. But
The
do I
Apocrypha,
go
Ray.
back to like, well, yeah. For instance, if you're mentioning Enoch and the Nephilim,
Yeah,
I mean, would I have to
that's
go
true.
and find a translation of the Book of Enoch?
That's
as well.
a good point.
And which
Yes,
which
actually,
like,
like,
author would I have to
think it
find for
would,
that? You know,
like,
But gonna.
I know
actually,
that
all that shit should be on the internet, so you just like control F through it.
Well, there's a book that most people purchase when it comes to the Book of Enoch or like a certain translation. I may just pick that up at some point.
Amazon special.
Well, I mean, most people come through asking for that at my place of employment, but I might just purchase that book.
Yeah, at the coffee shop. Like,
Yeah, at the coffee shop.
Well, I can do a mocha for you.
You want that hot or ice, sir?
Whole or non-fat or soy or almond or
Coconut milk.
I'm looking forward to reading
Or
into the
lactose-free.
specifics of
Cambodian breast milk.
sounds raunchy.
Dude, on that note, man, it's fucking funny, man. Like, some people come through, like, the place of my employment, and they're like, do you have soy milk? Do you have almonds? Like, no, motherfucker, this is McDonald's, dude. Like, you should be happy we have non-fat options. Like, fuck you. Like,
Is it lactate free? Get some almond milk. Woof.
Or a specific
could you
brand.
just wave a lemon in front of the hot tea I ordered?
I just want its essence.
Just waft it in my direction. Yeah.
It's a
Charge it
homeopathic citrus regimen, and it's been life-changing.
Yeah. They're injecting these. They're mainlining essential oils.
Okay, so
Yeah. So yeah, but to sort of get back to that, we've got a few things that we're going to try to review for.
yeah,
the,
that's follow up, and that's also
retrospect.
plays along with other books that we're going to be talking about as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
but,
this
just-
this narrative doesn't end. It
No.
almost just builds upon later on in
Yeah.
certain books and stuff like that. You can always revert back to this particular.
This is like a Sitchin teaser or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not even talking about his own series. His series of the Earth Chronicles elaborates on most of this. I assume. I'm not sure to what degree though.
Yeah, like
to the Sitchin extended
as
universe.
I talked about like, on the first episode, how like I did start reading the Stairway to Heaven book, and actually I was not reminded until today, where I was like, oh shit, the last chapter isn't really a last chapter. It's just let me try to like bridge into this next subject matter in this next book, which I guess he already had like most of the shit planned out at the time of writing, which he could have had like
Do you know what year he released
the
the
Earth
second
Chronicles Encyclopedia,
second volume?
you know.
I'm not aware of that
books in the
published
fucking series.
Sheesh.
And, I haven't gotten through the second book yet because I barely started and went, this is lame. Close it. Some other day.
Mind you, he does that, but he also has Genesis Revisited, which is like a prequel technically to this one. So,
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, because like he has like 6 books in Earth Chronicles, and then like that one book, Ray, and then I think there's a few other attributed to his penmanship. Like
there's also
he was pretty prolific.
End
I'm
of
not
Days is
sure
another
in
one
what
too.
span he was writing, but goddamn.
I mean, he could be like the George Lucas, and he had the whole
exactly. So that's why I
9
was like
episodes
just arguing with like
planned out.
The Earth Chronicles, dude, because like in the end of this book, he's like leaning into the second book. So maybe at the end of the second book, the end of that book is like leaning into that book and then leaning into that book. And oh no, I'm your father. Ah!
And your mother.
Yeah. So on this episode, we're going to be going through chapters 11 through 15, which concludes the book. And the first chapter we're going to get into is Mutiny of the Anunnaki.
Right.
And which is a title alone I just find intriguing, just because I like the word mutiny. It sounds a bit more dramatic than it probably actually is.
And of course,
well, I mean, according to this chapter, the mutiny is basically the Anunnaki saying, we don't want to work anymore. We're tired.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to do this. Make someone else do it. And then the person higher up than them says, you're right.
In
we'll
this
do that.
chapter,
right. So
like all this is accurate. It does come up in this chapter, but the way that he starts it off is about a tale where he links in, Africa being part of like the lower world.
Right.
And not like Hades or hell or whatever.
No, he does make that distinction.
He thinks that like people have misinterpreted like the lower world as being hell or whatever, but actually it was just like fucking Africa.
Right.
And that's where the Anunnaki got their gold from and shit. But he's like brings us in and he like shoehorns it in. And then he's like, oh yeah, the Anunnaki were mad because when they were there, they had to do all this bullshit. Right. And when they were in they were
mining
Land of the Two Rivers, they had to fucking, dig out all the fucking irrigation systems.
Right, yeah.
And
they had to drain the swamps. Yep.
I mean, which is a form of work that still goes on today, So, you got like people that mine the mines.
Well, yeah, in a non-fantastic interpretation of
maybe they were getting the black
rise
lung.
of the Sumerians, there's a book. I brought it up before. Like, we should totally do a Book of the Strange on it. Against his story against Leviathan, where he talks about, and this came up like earlier in 12th Planet as well, so I'll bring it up now. But how the gods are able to kind of like enjoy the breeze of the garden because Adapa or Adam and Eve are fucking toiling away or whatever. Like the yoke is off of the
backs of the Anunnaki.
Or the lower gods or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then he goes into the Old Testament bullshit, which we'll get into a little bit here in a sec, I assume, because he goes heavy into the Bible towards the end of the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does.
But so Yahweh is able to like travel through the Garden of Eden because fucking basically Adam and Eve are his bitches doing all of his shit work.
I guess. Well,
is that a parallel to the way that actual like taking out all of the mysticism? Is this like a way to reify the relationship between like the classes in early Sumerian civilization? Because you did have the haves and have-nots.
Right,
and
the serf caste.
A way for the haves to subjugate the have-nots was earlier when they used to abduct other people in like raiding parties or whatever, and they would maintain their dikes for them. So the yoke was taken off of like the Sumerians proper from maintaining their own like bitch work. So it allowed them to like form gardens and start like gaining a priestly elite and all this bullshit. So basically the argument that this guy Perlman made was civilization was built on the backs of slavery. And so I think about the Sumerian stories where it's like, oh, let's make fucking, or actually they're probably Babylonian accounts, and then the biblical accounts of like, oh, here's man to accept the yoke. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if those are just stories to be like, well, this is the way the gods have it, so this is the way that man should have it because we're modeled upon the gods, and the gods like want to model our behavior off how they set things up.
Right.
Which also Kramer, the guy who Sitchin constantly references and I think misrepresents certain accounts, he brings that up as well, where it's like the way like working like humans out. It was like, okay, like the Sumerians rationalized that, you know, they have their own like social order and hierarchical or social/hierarchical order. And there's the king who from his commands, basically anything in the empire happens. And then so when they're thinking about like life, interest, everything, they're like, well, extending that logic to if there is a God, then they probably have a similar hierarchy. There's, you know, gods to do these things, gods to do that things. And then there's the one God, the creator from what his word made everything, or made the gods do his bidding or whatever.
I mean, in that case, it'd be Anu, right?
Right. He would be Anu in that case. Right. So it's kind of cool how Sitchin works kind of like from the top down, then the bottom back up. And then you have academics working from the bottom up, and they kind of agree, but
yeah, kind of.
We'll get to that in the next episode on the follow up. But like just fucking Sitchin. Like, I want to talk about stuff that I've read about like with Kramer today because I just read like a few pages and I found all this stuff was like, oh, you know, but no, I can't talk about that yet.
Not yet.
So moving on, Ray, Roland.
I just wanted to bring up the fact that we talked about like how the gods kind of ruled. They had a separation of powers,
right?
Just to give the listener a little background. They when they first landed on Earth, they agreed upon the separation of powers, and Anu was to stay in the heavens,
right,
and rule over the 12th planet. And Lo was
good. You found that list where it has all the gods,
and Lo was to command over the lands. And Enki was put in charge of Abzu, which is considered like the watery deep.
Right. So
yeah.
So specifically the southern hemisphere.
Yeah.
The underworld.
Like Sitchin argues that the watery deep actually is basically like Africa.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then that's where he starts making those, I guess, sort of elaborating about how the underworld isn't actually like the place of the dead. It's. Mm-hmm. I mean, he sort of describes it a bit more. The gods
could travel back and forth from. Like,
right.
This watery deep was, you know.
It's a place of leisure. It's a paradise. Mm-hmm. I mean, he just sort of makes it sound like the Greek Elysian fields, which is fine. But he describes a story, and I'm not, and I guess it's just more like to just sort of go into the mythology of the lower world.
Oh, Inanna's flight.
That's right. Yeah, when her husband is taken to the
Nergal,
underworld.
Yeah.
Actually, I think Nergal.
Wait, is it? Oh no, Nergal is the husband of the fucking underworld.
Right, of Erishkigal, who is herself. She is the, I guess, Sumerian. Is it Sumerian or Babylonian at this point? I think it's still Sumerian.
To the Babylonian account.
Okay, so Erishkigal is the Babylonian version of hell. That is to say, with one L, which was, excuse me, not hell. It was the daughter of Loki in Norse mythology, and she basically runs the underworld. But anyways, like, so she is just, she meets with Inanna at some point, and they talk about how, and I don't think it really goes anywhere. For some reason though, like I was thinking of the Greek story of, I want to say Orpheus, where he travels to the underworld to.
Yes, and that's the parallel.
But like I don't think he ever references that. But it seemed like a
he
parallel.
doesn't. But that is like, yeah, if you go like, and particularly you go like Sitchin arguments, how like all of these later stories are just
right
retellings of the Sumerian or story, and he does like, not only does he like just flip back and forth between like Babylonian, Sumerian,
Assyrian,
like,
Hittite,
it's the same thing, just basically tell you talking about different people.
Yeah.
There's a inference or even just like outright, statement that these are all just, retellings of, these Sumerian
down
stories.
into the Bible. So yeah, like I don't think that story really went anywhere. It was mostly just sort of talking about like I guess descriptions of the underworld, and it wasn't necessarily what you.
Well, it was basically like, here's this mythos about the land of Arali,
right?
And like, where is it? And it's like, the text said that they fled south into the west, and they were on a boat. How far could they go feasibly?
Wasn't it also referred to as
the text says they sail for 200 hours?
Oh yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
So that's like 8.3 days that I just mathed out. And he's like, so they could travel like 2,000 to 3,000 miles in that amount of time
by paddle power.
And then he said, okay, cool. That puts them down in Africa, which.
And I think he sort of compares like a few of the rivers that they mentioned to like some of the, I guess like to African analog rivers in that area. I forget if I know he mentions the Nile because I think he mentions the three great rivers. It's the Nile. Is it Euphrates River? And
the Euphrates and the Tigris.
Yeah. And so
with the whole Africa connection though, like it's because it's like, the Anunnaki came here possibly for like gold mining.
Yeah, exactly.
And he goes into all of the iconography, like with like little like arrows that have like little weird shit on them.
Talks about
these are mine shafts, and and so then he basically is playing like the slow con or the long con about the Anunnaki had like this separate base here in Africa to mine for gold, and linking mythology and scientific inquiry, where it's like that out of Africa theory for the development of Homo
what
sapiens.
do we use gold for? Use it for currency.
He suggests that Homo sapiens we're created in Southeast Africa because the Anunnaki revolted and wanted people to fucking mine gold for them.
Right. What was the reason why they wanted them to mine gold? Well, just real quick before I get into that, I just wanted to read a quote, which I again find kind of silly the way he words it. It says, both serious scientists and science fiction writers have suggested the good reason for us to establish settlements on other planets, which is like the Nephalim, the Anunnaki, or asteroids, might be the availability of rare minerals on those celestial bodies, and minerals that might be too scarce or too costly to mine on Earth. Yeah. And could this be the Nephilim's purpose for colonizing Earth? Yeah. Why would he say both serious scientists and science? Why would he lump those two together?
And he just starts and then he goes into his little like gold song.
Because he's a serious scientist, right? That's why. Yeah.
No, he's not.
About here's iconography where like
he's a serious researcher.
Is depicted holding like flasks. Testing the waters or whatever. And he's like, so maybe they try to like, because like there's a lot of like gold in the waters, but unless you have cheap and highly efficient means to extract it, it's useless.
Unless they were to go down and sieve the bottom of the floor for nodules.
For the gold
they fucking talk about nodules. I thought that was.
Can I ask you guys a question? As far as you guys are more science fiction writers, can you think of just off the top of your head a plot or a storyline that where there's characters that are mining for gold specifically for a reason to either I don't know, for whatever reason they need to do it?
Well, I mean,
Dr. Know-It-All needs more gold for the resistors in his world maintenance machine to stop the insectoids from
from invading on the from the planet
quality,
X.
I don't know, man. It's some 50s like 1950s era sci-fi bullshit. Because fucking Sitchin goes into all these like this whole rant about how gold's awesome, how it's
it's a
malleable,
superconductor,
it's nearly indestructible, it's
which
great
I
in
was
computers, it's great as money.
Okay,
but he never says like why the Nephilim want gold. Like he never brings that up.
Other than that,
well, we think it's cool, so they must have thought it was cool.
That's
so
why they came here.
And then we thought it was cool because they thought it was cool. And
I think
it's just like it gets into this like tautological fucking circuit there. Like,
well, I mean, he does talk about how Ea is like also the god of mining. He was like. Also, he was given dominion over minerals, and like put in charge of that. He describes a few pictographs of what does he call it? Alana, which was basically a giant drill that they used.
But like, it was not only a drill for like.
It was also like a slash jackhammer or something like that. But it was
also like a city destroyer.
That's right. Yeah, like you put an.
It's like I'm a. Not put this thing on top of this tank and run through your cities if you don't obey me.
Yeah, like Sitchin says it's like a bulldozer. It's like, okay,
a bulldozer with a huge drill bit on it. Yeah, it's like, what the fuck?
I saw that in fucking Total Recall.
I knew you were gonna fucking say that. I was like, that's absolutely.
What was the fucking alien in Total Recall?
Shit.
I was gonna say Guado.
Guado.
I was gonna say Crom or something from Conan. That's wrong guy. They all sound the same. It's
yeah. So he sort of uses that as a. I mean, like he ties the information about mining to. Biblical scholars and biblical archaeologists that are, digging and inspecting through Africa, finding evidence of like human use or human remains, or not remains, just that they were there. Yeah, excuse me. As far back as like, what did he say? Like he started. He jumps around a lot. Like he starts, I think, as far back as 2000 BC, and then jumps to like 5,000 or so, 5,100 or so BC, and then like they find some more sites that go back to like 50,000 or so, and then he posits that they think,
it's like talking about the Deluge or whatever in these various events, like.
They posit that like, we think this goes back as far as 100,000 years ago, and so like that supposedly falls within that time range. Actually, right here, it relates archaeological finds dating mining in Africa as early as 100,000 BC. He tentatively locates this in the mining region of the Zambezi River in Africa. They describe actually, and I forgot to mention this here. I saw it. I'm just looking at this little review again, but they talk about how, well, like in terms of the Bible, he relates the story of Solomon on how he like uses all the gold to build a temple in Jerusalem, and
it's one of those places.
Yeah, and just I don't necessarily recall exactly where he was going with that. As far as that goes, I think it was just to sort of relate the primacy of the importance of the minerals, kind of stuff, and why the Nephilim were even here to begin with. Like apparently that was their main thing.
So early in the book, it was like they need petroleum, which is why they settled in
well, the petroleum was
Mesopotamia. Then, gold. So they actually settled earlier in.
Yeah, let's send them down there.
Forgot about the petroleum.
Yeah. I did think it was kind of funny how Because like we were talking before about the nodules at the sea bottoms or whatever that would have to be
deep dive grabbed.
Yeah, it would have to be searched for. Just
spit it out.
It doesn't matter. Like, it wasn't even important. Like, the bit that I was referring to that was funny was that, like, he mentions how there's a lot of gold flakes and, like, mineral flakes in water. But to get that, like, you would have to burn a ton of energy and it would be super inefficient because they would have to be over such a large body of water to begin with. And I was like, why did you even, like what's the fucking point of even talking about that if you just, already just sort of discounted it right there? Like,
I think, again, I just think he suggests things just to, if you're going to pose a question at some point, hey, well, why didn't they do this? Because you could find...
Because it's dumb, and anybody that actually knows about that understands the reason why it's not like...
Well, he's not, again, he's technically writing this for...
They say the same thing about, like, that apparently, like, if you were to harvest poo or whatever, you could pull all the gold flecks out of that as well, but why?
And peanuts.
That's right. Like,
are you saying that Dookie twinkles, Roland?
It sparkles, all right, on the molecular level.
Not all that shines is shit.
So yeah, no, like I was just talking about that because it was a funny little thing, and I don't really
so,
know why
what chapter are we talking about again?
We're still talking about chapter
we're still
11.
like
I wanted to talk about the Anunnaki and why they are the workers. They're like the lower level Nephalim. They're the ones that perform the tasks.
Right. They're the serfs. The serfs of the god serfs or whatever.
Enough with some say eventually when we get to the end of this chapter.
So not quite, but yeah.
I mean
I mean in that, like, as the working class.
Right.
They
just
still have
quotes
some pull.
The book here.
They're probably unionized.
Yeah, that's why they had a say,
That's right.
They probably like, oh no, that would be way too much in the future. But like the red marks, like.
It says here that they were the lesser members of the landing party of the Anunnaki. So we had a group that did land, and they were
so you have
the worker
like
bees.
So you have the Igigi that were in the ships doing whatever,
right?
And then you had the Anunnaki on the ground. Then you had the gods.
The gods, so like the scientists,
they were either on like
the
Earth
elites.
or the 12th planet.
Right.
And Enlil is the god, or who was the commander of these quote unquote astronauts. Just the quote, Sitchin here, he says, assigned to Anu to heed his instructions, 300 in the heavens he stationed as a guard, the ways of earth to define from the heaven and on earth. 600 he made reside after all the instructions had ordered to the Anunnaki of heaven and of earth, he allotted their assignments, and their assignment was to mine for gold, or mine.
Get that nugget.
Get those nuggets. Says the Anunnaki, on the other hand, who had landed and stayed on Earth, were known and revered by mankind. We'll get that later, though. It's still in the same chapter. He starts talking about like the groups of like 50 and all that, and I kind of lost it there. Like I was just like, I don't care about.
Yeah, no, I mean, like he just it's just
basically like
it's completely extemporaneous.
Like whatever, I'm going to give the fake motivation of like, okay, you put in your time on Earth, time to get some shore leave, go back to the 12th planet. So initially there were 50 Anunnaki sent to Earth.
Yeah.
As the initial landing party. But then the Sitchin math, he goes like, okay, then there were 100, then 200, and then so on and so forth till they got to 600. So every time that like 50 went down, 50 of them got shore leave, and then they would send 50 down and then 50 more to replace that 50. So second trip, 100 Anunnaki. Third trip, you got to send 50 back. So I guess then they sent 150 new Anunnaki.
So
took back 50, sent 250.
At some point, the Anunnaki get disgruntled.
Right.
Do you want to give an example as to why, Roland? I mean, Daniel, as to why they got disgruntled from their station in life?
Because they worked for fucking
apparently
thousands of years.
Apparently they were
mining.
They were eating dirt.
They got, for their recompense, they got to eat fucking clay mixed with water and shit.
Yeah.
And dust and stuff. Like,
it's almost like a coal miner having their lunch and there's just coal bits in
Coal
there
to eat,
and
yeah.
they're like dirty ditch water that's mixed and they're like, well, just be happy with that, right? That's what you're supposed to do when you're here on Earth. Eat garbage.
Yes. Suffer
Yes.
is
The
it's a good life.
Anunnaki suffered the toil, according to this here. They were complaining, backbiting, grumbling in the excavations. And it says the occasion for the mutiny appears to have been a visit by Enlil to the mining area. Seizing the opportunity, the Anunnaki said to one another.
yeah, it's probably like Enlil's like re-election campaign for the Enlilship, you know, and he's like, let me go on this little PR campaign to the mines down in South Africa.
I'm about to go
Oh
electioneering.
shit, they're pissed.
Need to do some politicking.
Yeah, he gets really butthurt and
just
calls all the other gods down.
Just want to go about read what they said to one another. It says, "Let us confront and says the chief officer. They may relieve us of our heavy work. The king of the gods, the hero Enlil. Let us unnerve him in his dwelling." It says the leader or organizer of the mutiny was soon found. He was the chief officer of old time, and he must have held a grudge against the current chief officer. His name, regrettably, is broken off. So, but his inciting
course
address
it
is
is.
quite clear. Now proclaim war. Let us combine hostilities and battle. And then they go through the description of the mutiny. You want to read that, Roland? It's page
I was trying to find it.
332.
Oh,
the very
okay.
bottom.
I was just 332. Description of the mutiny is so vivid that scenes of the storming of the Bastille come to mind. The gods heeded his words. They set fire to their tools, fire to their axes they put. They troubled the god of mining in the tunnels. They held him as they went to the gate of the hero Enlil. Let's see. I mean, the rest of it just goes along to say,
You know, and Enlil probably showed up with like a pitcher of iced tea, like, hey, people are here to visit. You're mad. Why?
As they have like dry clay around their fucking mouths and
more
shit.
ice, please.
You go,
yeah.
I hear the clay and ditch water is quite good at this time of year.
Does it help your skin? Like,
You all look radiant. And they just have the fucking like pissed off look on their face. Yeah, and his Enlil's first reaction was to take
it
up
was
arms
really
against his
funny.
mutineers.
Yeah.
But he was advised against it.
Is it against me that this is being done? Must I engage in hostilities? Uh-huh. What did my very own eyes see? Yeah, that battle has come right upon to my gate. Yeah. Oh.
You know, if this were to be like a play or something, like I feel like that would be the actual voice.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of like a whiny or nasally or Anunnaki
Must
person
we
who's like
engage
complaining about their work and shit.
in a bout of fisticuffs?
Never. Okay, so what happens after Enlil comes and he realizes that they he's kind of shocked that they're pissed at him.
He tries to make it like so. He calls up all the management basically. Enki, Anu show up. I forget who else, but
it's like that, almost like that Bob and David sketch, Mr. Show sketch, where the guy asks for change for $1, and the guy has to keep calling up like for the chain of command to see if they give the guy a change.
I haven't seen that skit in a long time.
Oh, it's great. But
so they come down and the Anunnaki tell them they explain to Ea, they explain to Anu what the hell the deal is, and Enlil, being still a big baby or whatever, is like, you know, all right, well, here's my ultimatum. Either you guys kill the guy that started this whole thing, like you kill the guy who started the revolt, or I'll quit. and Anu's like,
quit, bitch.
Yeah, what? He's like, no, why like they're so like all of the other gods sided with the Anunnaki. They're like, no, they've kind of got a good point. Like, I imagine it sucks ass to eat dirt and drink water from a ditch. You know, like,
have you guys ever had any teachers threaten to quit on you, and you're just kind of like, well, do it. Just fucking do it. I actually had a teacher quit on us 3 times, and she walked out, and then like minutes later walked back and tried to gain our sympathy for walking out on us, not realizing that we were cheering the minute she walked out the doors.
She should have just followed through. That's what she should have done.
Yeah,
obviously it's not for everybody. Whatever people think that teaching is easy or whatever the fuck, anybody can do it.
So the other 2 times,
you're an idiot.
What was that?
The other 2 times. She was joking.
Yeah, she said she quit 3 times.
Well, yeah, well, she did it over a span of like the 2 years that I had her as a teacher. Like,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
there you go. All right, that completes the cycle.
I'm out of here. I'm done with this.
Cool.
So yeah, like
so basically the Anunnaki are wanting, I guess, relief or like help.
They want out, man.
Yeah, they want it completely, and they want some like they suggest to create a primitive worker.
Yeah, exactly.
The Lulu.
Yeah, the Lulu.
Which actually, Ray, that there was that terrible Metallica album with Lou Reed.
Yeah, it's called Lulu. It's terrible.
I've never listened to it.
You think it's technically called like primitive worker, primitive musician or something?
I was thinking, man,
you might be giving them too much credit.
It's a little like weird kind of album, you know.
Well, do you think Lou Reed may have read 12th Planet? And he got that from there?
I mean, maybe.
Why not?
Well, that album's terrible.
Actually, I'm going to blame Rob Trujillo
so I would have to say.
Cool ass hair.
Was he in the band when they made that? He was,
I didn't think so. He was? Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he joined shortly after Stanger was released.
Well, he was in Stanger.
Well, no. All of that shit was done by Bob Rock.
That's right. Excuse me. He just performed it after the fact in the concerts and shit. That's true.
Yep.
That's right. So yeah, the Ea was actually the one that suggested the primitive worker,
right. Mm-hmm.
Also known as Enki.
Right, as known as Enki.
Just for our listeners, because they break it down where it's like he's Ea when he has the Enlil ship for like the planet Earth or whatever,
right?
And then he becomes Enki when he becomes like the Lord of the Watery Deep.
No. So you had it backwards, dude. He's Enki when he has the Enlil ship. And when Enlil comes down and takes over his post and he's sent to the Watery Deep, he becomes Ea.
I mean, thank you for the correction, but you don't need to yell.
Listen, bitch.
See that? Like all those kind of things
it's
can be
so
very
fucking confusing. It absolutely is. So Ea is seen as the modern father or creator.
Well, it's kind of like
of the primitive worker.
The planet
from that
is the Marduk changes its name when it's in a certain
orbit,
constellation,
in a certain position. Like when it's
at the crossing, it's like Niburu or something.
When it's near Mars, it's this, and then it becomes Ninurta. No, that's a god. What's the fucking name of the 12th planet when it actually hits like a line?
The crossing.
Earth?
It's Niburu. Is it the crossing? Yeah.
So it's like Station Niburu.
Yeah.
So this is still Sumerian. The Babylonian father of humanity is supposed to be Marduk, I believe.
Right.
With this, it's Ea. And
all these people have very fluid identities.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's not even the language. The language itself, the Sumerian language that like Sitchin sort of goes into slightly here is that like the 2-syllable words are actually reversible, so that they still have the same meaning.
Like Enzu and Zuen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was just like, oh, that's so frustrating. But on top of the fact that like these people have like, you know, two or three different names and like 4 or 5 different titles, and they're all the same person.
And that's before Sitchin goes and plays with his own like little like linguistic ninjutsu.
Right. Yeah. When he starts, and I mean like the forms of the name for, or rather the evolutions of Adam and Eve, or Adam himself starts off as Adapa, and then
Is it interesting? That's the same word as Adamu, which means red earth, and
right? And that, like, as well, the Sumerians having their fun with their double and triple meanings, and so Adam was formed of the clay and also of the image of God, or in this case the Anunnaki, and the word also means, it means soil, but then it also means dark red soil, and that also means blood. And so that's where they get that relationship of the blood of, or the image of, the progenitor gods.
And that can segue into the next chapter, Roland, which is number 12, the creation of man.
Yeah. It's interesting, but it's like I just wish he handled it better.
When we enter the new chapter, everyone kind of sighs. If it's not coming to the microphone, like I'm hearing in the headphones, there's a collective sigh whenever we jump to the next chapter, because it feels like then there's another task at hand.
Yeah. So the creation of man.
Yes.
Right?
And just to give a quick, I guess, condensed version of the creation of man from the Bible, what I think is it man is created on the 6th day?
Yeah. Yeah. And on the 7th day is when they relax and chill or whatever. Crack out the Netflix.
Yeah, and we've made mention of this before. Sitchin claims that the biblical version of these stories is just a condensed version of the Sumerian tales, which go into far more detail. The book of Genesis is like one book, couple pages long.
Yeah, the Sumerians have full entire texts.
Cuneiform tablets.
So fucking Sitchin. Right. So there's one chapter in here. I'm just gonna shoehorn it in because he gets really fucking flippant at one point. We're talking about like the evolutionary story, but are we really nothing more than naked apes? Is the monkey just an evolutionary arm's length away from us? And the tree shrew just a human who has yet to lose his tail and stand erect?
Yeah,
So my comment to this was, that is like the equivalent to saying, if we was descended from monkeys, why is there still monkeys?
Why don't we have? Right. Yeah.
And also, like, probably more for like the last episode we're gonna do on this shit, but it's like, yes, actually, we are a little step away from tree shrews.
Isn't that cool?
We are a little step away from these monkeys.
Like, we're one step away.
We had a common ancestor. Yes,
and we're completely fucking different. Like, it's that huge. Like,
yes, scientists are saying this, Sitchin. Just sorry you don't agree with it, but yes, that is the case.
Sitchin's bias is showing a little bit. It's coming back again where he was talking about the ideas of evolution and how we came from primitive man, and there's no way they could have like developed over this period of time. Like, it should have taken so much longer because we're dumb. And it's like, obviously aliens came along and guided us to our present state, which is how we got corn and what the hell was the name of that? Oh no! So like I was thinking of that stupid thing earlier
about this. Yeah,
this was off.
It's chapter
off the recording here,
13 or 14.
Yeah, we get to where they mention the corn.
Yeah, in the East, which is
didn't happen.
Yeah, it's impossible. All right, like, okay, dude, sure. Aliens, and they took it all with them when they left. They.
So I want to know, like, why they didn't take one of the like sky boats to the watery deep west, because the timeline would have been okay. Because like domestication of Zea maize was like 10,000 years ago or something like that. So I think that was totally jived with the Sumerians, but I'm not sure because I'm like 3000 BC.
It was a missed opportunity, apparently.
This whole fucking book is a missed opportunity.
It's part of one.
Part one of the missed opportunity series or chronicles. Yeah.
One of the things that Sitchin mentions is that whenever the God created man,
wrong.
allegedly. He made man to worship God, and that the translation is actually supposed to be work.
To serve.
Yeah, he's supposed to work for him.
Work for him.
Which is funny.
So yeah, like they created the surf cast or whatever with the creation of humanity. We were made to toil away, right? And to do that, I was telling Ray, they cracked out the Nephalim CRISPR and used gene splicing or whatever, gene modification to birth us, or I guess.
Yeah, and Sitchin like talks about all the
methods,
the tech that we have now, where it's like, okay, well, like human cloning's even been discussed or whatever,
right?
And so he applies that to like, well, if the Anunnaki, were so much more advanced than us, like 400,000 years ago when they landed, then they would have had this like knowledge too,
obviously.
But what's funny is you talk about how Earth and this whole planet and all the other planets that have like the right conditions for life or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then earlier in the book, didn't he talk about how like, oh, well, there's evidence for microscopic, life on Mars or whatever of the planets. And with our modern understanding, like, it's like, oh, well, we actually don't know the conditions for like what actually allows for life to begin and then
because that takes a complete understanding of physics, which that's nowhere near. I mean, you have planets that are so cold that they burn. There's shit that makes absolutely no sense. Aside,
it's like he's just kind of like cheaply applying the conditions of life to this mystery 12th planet, which he's trying to demonstrate even exists, much less what the conditions are on it are. Mm-hmm. And he's saying, "Oh, it's like Earth. Oh, it's like Earth. It's fine. It's like Earth. Yeah. It's just a big Earth. Comes around every once in a while. Right. It's big Earth. Similar conditions. That's how they knew how to splice shit."
So what did the Nephilim use, or what did they do to actually create men? So it said they genetically modified or manipulated.
By that it's like selective breeding.
Well, what did they? Who did they use, or what was used to actually create modern men? They took the ovum
from an ape-man because
ape-man
from Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Yes, and Daniel, I do want you to bring that theory that you had up for a few minutes.
Yeah. Oh shit. Was it in this chapter? Because that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, I think it was.
It was okay.
Just before figure 149.
Just to kind of sum this up real quick, Sitchin was talking about like the early interactions with the like Anunnaki or Nephilim, and what he suggests is Homo erectus.
Right.
Because you have the, shaggy man ape that would. I'm trying to think of like a cartoon character that would like always constantly like befuddle the fucking attempts of the other person to like capture them or whatever. So it's like Bugs Bunny basically.
The Roadrunner?
Yeah, Bugs Bunny running through. But apparently these like, shaggy ape-men that the
knuckle draggers,
that the 12th planet origin folks would run into would fill in the holes they dug as traps, disable traps and protect their little animal friends or whatever. And I don't think that that sort of behavior is indicative of humans, because we are a greedy, shitty,
opportunistic.
Opportunistic. Yes, that's another good word for shitty. But like
lazy.
I don't know. Like I think if like total humans came upon a trap, they'd be like, "Ooh, my thing."
Yeah, because early hunter gatherers, like, what did they do? They were very much just like, all right, this is
really like scavengers,
exactly.
And then like
anything they found,
for them,
anything
like,
they found,
yeah,
they had
my reward. I'm just gonna take this and
because they were nomadic as fuck to begin with. That means that they had no like storage. They had no like. Like it's not like they had to carry things around in a backpack. Like, no, it was very much just oh, cool. I found this bag of nuts. I'm going to eat it here. Or like,
So I think our shaggy man ape friend was actually good old Sasquatch.
From
It was
Harry and the
Bigfoot,
Hendersons?
Protecting fucking nature and stuff. And it wasn't Homo erectus that the Anunnaki, or the Nephilim, decided to gene splice. I think it was Bigfoot, which explains for the lack of sightings of Bigfoot in nature nowadays, because the Anunnaki helped drive them to extinction by taking a good chunk of their population for their experiments to make, a DAPA.
Well, yeah. I mean, sure, why not?
Well,
they had to harvest their eggs, kind of thing, for this whole thing, because of how it worked. Supposedly was that those were planted inside of the Nephilim, and Ea, in this particular context, Ea was like I said before, he was the father of mankind. He was the first one to fertilize that egg and birth
He
Adam.
was also Enki, right?
Yes.
Just want to make that clear.
I would try to, anyways. Fuck. It's just easier to refer to him as Ea at this point.
I do want to bring up the fact that it wasn't a successful experiment in the first time around.
No, it wasn't. There were some hilarious results.
Roland or Dan, do you want to read some of the
Go for it, Roll, dude. I just want to comment on
the
these.
experiments that they created?
This was kind of weird, and I'm not too sure like how it exactly. So, because there are two distinctions that I understand. The one where,
and actually,
what's up?
So, sorry, jumping ahead a little bit to some of the stuff we're going to talk about. So, Sitchin's whole linchpin was the Anunnaki need to bang Homo erectus for it to work. Mm-hmm. But they try to produce all these
hybrid
other experiments. Yeah, these other hybrids.
Before they decided to make a primitive man, they made and so he points to the sphinxes.
Yeah.
He's like
fish people.
Yeah,
and
there
all this
were
other bullshit.
But
there was that one figure that he shared where it had little dude on chicken legs, which I think is super cute and hilarious.
So the problem with all of that is that I guess they were short-lived. They had a lot of deformities and that sort of thing. Just it didn't work out.
That was a figure 150. Yeah.
Yeah, this guy.
Yeah.
Have a look at that. I don't know, guys. It looks like the devil to me. Are you sure those are chicken legs?
Maybe those look like chicken legs for sure.
No. The devil is on the far left of figure 150.
Yeah. Which I can't tell.
It could be
I can't.
3 over. Or
I can't tell
most
if
of those
it's
figures actually.
I can't tell if it's a tail or just a really long dick that's wrapping around his leg.
Why not both? Isn't that?
But I don't know if you look at the figure. There's a lot of dicks in that figure there.
What the fuck is that movie with the James Cameron has with the blue people or whatever?
Avatar.
Yeah, isn't that how don't they have tail dicks or whatever? Or is it their hair? I forget. I never watched that shit because it's shit.
No, it's just the tail. They connect
them or whatever. They dock
together. They dock their tails. Yeah.
All right, so. Yeah. My problem with that I get a bit confused, and this is what I was talking to you about before, Daniel, is when he's jumping around between Sumerian and Babylonian mythology. I believe in Sumerian, he refers to Ninhursag as the mother of humanity. She's the one responsible for birthing them, for sort of helping create them or coming up with the whole idea. She's also referred to, and I think this was in Babylonian, as Mammy. Which I think I mentioned in the first episode is where we derive the term mother, mommy from. Where it gets a little confusing or fuzzy for me is the other name that she's referred to, and that is Ninki, right? When she is being referred to as Ninki, or rather that personification of her as Ninki, she is not the mother. She is the midwife of
I think it's Ninlil, you mean, right?
Ninlil is the actual mother. That is to say, Ninlil is the wife of Ea.
Okay.
In that
but then she
context.
is said to be Ninti, so I believe that it was a flip to the Babylonian account.
Right. Okay. So that's where I get a little confused. That is to say, originally Ninhursag was said to have birthed or created humans, and then later on that is Ninti, again, the wife of Ea, with Ninki, that is to say, Ninhursag, being the midwife, the sort of the architect of it, because she's the one that tells Ea and Ninti how to do this. Like, look, you need to get some clay. You need to get like this. Like, apparently there was a formula or to it, and they're like, okay, sure, let's get to banging. And so, so they say the blood of they say they use the blood of gods and clay. Sitchin postulates that what they really do is they take the ovum from an ape, a female ape-man, human, and you basically use, I suppose, what would be it's not vitro fertilization. It's where the
artificial insemination.
Right. Yes, where the woman acts as a she yes.
Spooge.
There's a term for it, but yeah, she carries the egg to term.
Yes.
And Ea comes and
spooges,
spreads his juice on there, and they're the modern fathers of humanity. That's where Adam is born. But what you were telling me to go in before, Ray, is where it gets, this sort of to me refers to the capriciousness of the gods, because they're assholes. If you've read Roman or Greek or Norse mythology. Like
all the gods have a fun side to them.
And they also have a fucky side to them. And a lot of times, like those lines get blurred. And this is one of the fucky times where Ninhursag is she's like in here. Sitchin says that she mischievously tells Ea, if I'm mistaken, that oh hey, I'm gonna play around with like making these people, and so. She makes 6, I believe it was 6 humans that were, they were deformed and like they had deficiencies. That one of them was blind, like another one was born without genitals. Another guy, like he couldn't hold his piss, like his he was like literally like unable to hold his urine. Like what? Okay. There were others that were born that had infirmities at old age.
Trembling hands,
right?
Sick liver,
trembling hands, right?
So
yeah,
the guy
failing
couldn't
liver.
like hold his piss in. Do you think it was just like a slow trickle the whole time, like
right? Yeah,
piss, like developed, like he was just not just like spraying all over the place.
I guess he was always having to be hydrating or whatever. I don't know. Like that's.
Or maybe on a timed hydration process. So, like, if he at some point they have to time the piss correctly.
Right.
So, if he drank something, he wait a certain amount of time,
maybe
he would have to go urinate somewhere else, as opposed to just it being a surprise and
it's very regular.
Pisses everyone on the floor. Just down.
He must have had a very clean liver, I guess, and kidneys, and just.
Well, who knows what color that urine was? It could have been orange or green. Or
right. Yeah, we don't know anything about their diet.
Maybe his kidneys were all fucked up too.
Maybe. So yeah, like. Ninhursag apparently was sort of a joke to her. I'm not too sure.
When you say that, I just want to read this part just before, like they talk about all the deformities of those folks. It says the Sumerian texts too speak of the deformed humans created by Enki and the mother goddess Ninhursag.
Right.
In the course of their efforts to fashion a perfect primitive worker,
Enki is Ea.
One text reports that Ninhursag, whose task it was to bind upon the mixture the mold of the gods, got drunk and called over to Enki.
Right, that's right. She got drunk.
How good or how bad is man's body? As my heart prompts me, I can make its fate good or bad.
Yes.
It sounds like they were just kind of
Sitchin attributes this to a trial and error process. Like he totally just
shit-faced trial and error.
I would say an intentional trial and error. They're just like, well, let's just kind of like see what happens here.
So yeah, he's like, this is probably unavoidable. It's like what? Okay, then
with these technologically advanced gods, they just happen to have
no balls, no vag, all butthole.
They shit out the back and the front.
So yeah. Enki named the 7th Adapa Adam, that is to say, the modern Homo sapiens. which, yeah, very different from the shaggy ape-man is what Sitchin says here. A smooth, hairless body. A skin as the skin of a god.
Yeah.
So apparently the Nephilim were genetically compatible with the daughters of man after this final product, and able to marry them and have children by them.
Nothing for the dudes, though. No, like, fucking angelic fucking for them.
Well,
I mean, the Nephilim were...
Also, they also had...
You know,
I know
the daughters of men, you know,
Yeah.
fuck, you know.
I mean, yeah, it couldn't just be with the girl Nephilims. That's just... No, it's all about spreading that seed.
That's patriarchal and like
That's right. They're run by dudes.
So like Sitchin's like a fucking SJW and he doesn't even know it. Intergalactic SJW or actually galactic. It's all the same galaxy.
They do say
SJW.
They do say that after Adam was created, they basically settled on a mold for like human birth.
Wasn't that who
so-
Adam was, or adopted?
Yeah.
He's just a mold that they kind of based
Well,
something else on.
the model.
He was the model.
Like,
the mold
model.
was like
Yeah,
the
like-
process that they
Like
used.
there was like an Adapa made, but then like I guess the framework that made Adapa, they're like,
Yeah.
all right, that's the
We
shit.
got this. And so like they bring
Let's mass
14
reproduce.
they
this
bring
bullshit.
14
Yeah.
Nephilim goddesses and do the same thing. What I'm not
7
sure
make
about
chicks, 7 make dudes.
what I'm not sure about is if Ea was the one for all of them at this point, or if it was like they had other partners. But
I think they had bukkake parties, and there was just a surprise from there.
yes, the spray and pay. Okay. So
Oh, those traditions still hold up to this day in 2020. I seen them.
Just like our 12-hour day or our 12 double-hour day. Bukkake.
after they were born, Enki was
Departed by the fucking Anunnaki.
I mean, star people.
Anunnaki Bukake.
Just to sort of end that, like they were after that they were Enki, Ea was put in charge of them. He was put in charge of training them, giving them knowledge, and setting them to task.
That's funny. This is like the first time that like Roland's tried to stay on task, and then you and I have gone off on bullshit, Ray.
I'm trying to do it while I still can, while I still have something to say. That's all. Just like,
Well, I mean,
Quest first.
yeah, and last.
last, yeah. So after the creation, of course, men are created to toil the earth, mine, do the Anunnaki job. And then we move on to chapter 13, which is the end of all flesh, aka the fall of man, basically.
Kill them all.
Okay, so basically it correlates to the condensed version of the Garden of Eden when men are pretty much, they eat from the tree of knowledge and they are banished. There's a lot of weird shit that goes on in this. They discuss
but it's like, why?
why were they banished? Yeah, but
Too smart for your own good.
before we do that, just want to talk about
Quit
some of
fucking animals.
the weird shit. Yeah, the weird shit that was going on in this place.
The Anunnaki did make or supposedly limit the intelligence of humanity
Ideally,
to something near to them, but not exactly, because I want to say because of that exact reason. They're like, nope, you can't know too much because then you'll be like us and you'll try to take over. You need to do what you're told.
The man worked naked.
Yeah,
They
put on clothes.
They pretty much bang
that.
animals.
That's right.
They bang each other, but without any sort of. They weren't procreating at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were just kind of like banging willingly
Yeah.
or willy nilly.
Mm-hmm. Lots of willies.
Lots of willies, lots of banging. It says Sitchin relates the story
Don't
of
you mean
animalistic
loving?
man giving up sodomy with animals for sex with a woman, and in the process becoming more advanced.
Right. Yeah.
And then there was that tale where it was like they sent that one like harlot goddess down to go like fuck a dude so he would like realize, oh, fucking animal, that's stupid. I'm gonna fuck bitches.
Oh yeah. And it's funny because you know what, that you mentioned that later on it got turned around. I think it was it Gilgamesh who Inanna was like, hey, you want some of this? And he's like, how many dudes have you been with? And she's like, probably a few. And he's like, yeah, I'm good. Nah. He just sort of walks away. And yeah, like it was just funny to me.
I've heard about 12th planet gonorrhea. Fuck that.
The slut goddess was denied.
I immediately brought up the skit from Dave
Get you
Chappelle
behind me, space herpes.
when he talks about him like fucking like a orangutan or some shit.
Yeah.
And how he's like, he doesn't want to fuck human women. Like he just wants to fuck this orangutan because it peels his dick like a fucking banana or something. I just thought I'd break that up because that just what it reminded me of. Always funny. So, again, reverting back to the biblical story, Adam and Eve do eat from the tree of knowledge, and then the Sitchin says that the knowledge that they acquire is the knowledge to procreate, which is I going through this chapter pretty fast. I wasn't sure like why they couldn't do that beforehand. So basically, they did give them the ability to if it was just not, they were fucking already, right?
Yeah.
So
why would the knowledge of them procreating before, were they pulling out the whole time? Were they just not
shooting those super blanks?
Yeah. I don't know. Did the knowledge allow for more potent jizz?
If I come in your pussy, not in your belly button, it works.
Man, this is graphic.
It's because they weren't eating enough kale. All right, they need the superfoods to give them the super spooge, and that was it. It's all about the diet, baby.
And it says that Enlil was the disciplinarian and the adversary to man. While Enki was man's advocate and maker.
Yeah, and Ea was the one that.
Ea was
it's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same person.
But once again, no, Enlil's not.
No. He's talking because he said Enki. Excuse me, and I said Ea just because trying to
when we're
stay
switching
consistent.
names here, it's still confusing.
It's just better to just use them all. You know what?
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Enlil was the disciplinarian. He was the one trying to like just keep them down or whatever and under control and subjugated. If I'm not mistaken, Enki was the one that was
It's considered the serpent, right?
Yes, and I want to say also the Greek version of Prometheus, who brought fire to the humans, and that was what sort of was one of the catalysts for the development of civilization. Prometheus brought fire down from the heavens, and it was against Zeus's wishes, and Zeus punished him for it. Zeus being an analog for Enlil, and again Prometheus for Ea, for Enki.
Did you read a different book, because that didn't come up?
I think he's just making the comparison.
No, I was making the comparison because he does compare Enlil to Zeus. And I do want to say I read something in here about he didn't name Prometheus specifically. He did mention in here something about bringing the fire down to humanity. It was in the beginning of the book somewhere. But anyways, so this is just more of those parallels that Sitchin uses for his literal interpretation of of all of these belief systems.
Now, was it like a big assumption for Sitchin to associate Enki or Ea with the serpent in the Garden of Eden in the biblical
So you were
story?
telling me before that was it the Gnostic or the agnostic?
It's the Gnostic
that
version.
supposedly referred to the serpent. The serpent as okay. So this isn't specifically like that, in that you're mentioning the serpent was represented as Jesus, who brought
as like the Jesus character,
right?
Yeah.
But I know I've read accounts or interpretations of the serpent as like a positive.
I guess Yahweh, yeah. The serpent is supposed to be a
Influence
positive
on
or like
humanity.
a
It's
bringer
just
of
like-
wisdom, because the snake in most cultures
That's right.
represents
The Cadus, I think, was it?
it represents like wisdom or knowledge or something.
The snake's twined about the staff to represent.
and they actually have
modern
that
medicine.
here, but with the I guess a palm tree or something.
Right. Yeah.
Figure 158.
Yeah.
And let me see if I have. Hold on.
So yeah, I the reason I was asking about that is because I don't remember exactly which interpretation of the Bible represents the snake as not an evil figure.
I don't think there's a portion of the Bible that
I'm
doesn't.
not sure. Yeah,
there isn't a version.
I'm not sure if there is.
I don't think there's a version of the Bible in any version like that,
because it's just like, oh well, like the snake.
Then I guess it was just
is like representative of like Satan or whatever.
Right. So, yes. The standard representation of him is.
Well, that's also over time. That
I guess I'm just
attributed to that character.
One of those
like,
or the new age.
If it's supposed to be like Ea or Enki as the snake, then he's not a negative figure.
No,
because these are because the pantheon of the Sumerians was just, they're just people, really, with their own little agendas and stuff. And Ea had his little pet project with people.
He likes them.
Whereas in
it is explained that Adam is his direct son in this.
Right. But in the Torah or the Pentateuch, the snake is like the adversary.
Right. I must be thinking of some like new wave friggin' Church of Satan.
New wave Bible?
Observations or
the
interpretations.
New wave, there's going to be a new wave translation, and I hope someone comes up with that just because it might be interesting to read.
Anyways, like that was the main reason why I had asked you about the sort of stories and beliefs surrounding the serpent in the Garden of Eden kind of stuff, and how it wasn't necessarily the standard interpretation used here. Ea was supposed to represent that on multiple levels, and yeah. Oh, God damn it. Anyways, so where did we leave off here?
We're still on chapter 13.
I think the last thing we were talking about was sex with animals.
That was at the beginning, actually. Basically, we left off with the fact that Enki gave him the knowledge. He represented the serpent in the Garden of Eden.
Sitchin does postulate that Enki's the serpent.
Enlil was pissed that Enki basically engineered them to be able to procreate and stuff like that.
To be independent.
And then,
to go get a job.
After all that, with his more like, let's bring the Bible in, he starts talking about. I
think he does. He does it a lot in this chapter, though. Like I feel like there's more.
Oh yeah. But it starts off with like
talking about Adam and Eve.
Cain and Abel story.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
yeah.
Lamech and Lamech's fuck up, and then like how, or not Lamech's fuck up, because Noah was the son of Lamech, who was like, and Noah's name meant like respite or whatever. But we're getting into the deluge here, folks.
Right.
And that goes into, is it chapter 14?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, it ends 13 talking about Utnapishtim, the Sumerian version of Noah.
Yeah.
And that
Babylonian.
Oh, okay. I'm reading that here
because he directly like talks about like the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is a Babylonian tale.
Oh, okay. Well, then this fucking summary here is got it back asswards. It's that's where I read this little last bit here. Ziusudra or Utnapishtim, the Sumerian version of Noah. Either way, like
Zudapishtim or whatever is the Babylon or the Sumerian. Then
maybe. The point is that like again, it's just another analog. Or parallel, excuse me, leading into Sitchin using more information, tacking in more stuff from the Bible, leading up to the flood. And as anyone that's looked at like Deluge myths, there are a lot of different stories. Like you just said, the Gilgamesh goes into that, the Epic of Gilgamesh. This is just the one he uses here.
Well, fuck! I was just watching a YouTube video. Some dudes talking about how they think that the sites of like Tiwanaku and Pumapunka can be explained. Like they posit that like you have like an Anunnaki kind of like god level force that built the sites initially, but then when the Great Deluge came, it scattered like all of the fucking big blocks and shit. So like, oh well, these were scattered in the Great Deluge, and then people came by later and set up shop there and built around some of the like initial
Remains
that were like intact or whatever. Yeah. Because like they talk about that with the Inca, because they talk about like the architecture early on was like, oh, look at these huge ass blocks, so to come from like super far away, and then later like Inca constructions on top of those earlier constructions, they're trying to like capture the same like idea, but it's like done way more shittily. Like they're using like mortar, whereas earlier constructions did not.
Right.
So they're talking about like how sites like Cusco and like Machu Picchu and stuff were initially like built by other people.
Yeah.
Then
they built on top
like
of that.
the Deluge, and then later people came by and were like, oh, let's build upon this shit or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, so just owning your point, like the Deluge myth is like all over the fucking place, but it's been recently applied to an area of the world that I care the fuck a lot about, being the Andes. And I thought it was interesting with their like thoughts on it. I'm just wondering why like there isn't a bunch of like clay and silt and shit that's intermixed with the remains at like Tiwanaku if it was flood waters that like pushed all this stuff, because you'd have like all the like flood sediments there, I would think. But whatever, moving on.
Yep.
Sorry.
14. When the gods fled from Earth.
Yes,
Yes.
chapter 14.
When the unprepared gods fled from Earth,
Yeah.
actually.
I figured they would.
like you said, Roland, this chapter pretty much goes into the Deluge.
So yeah, Ray was showing me the, I guess the little chronology that Sitchin puts together at the end of chapter 14. I don't know if you
Yeah, I'm sure Daniel's
took a quick
come
look
across
at
that
it
at some point.
Yeah, and how.
But before we get into that, I just want to ease into this chapter here. Again, this is basically about the Deluge and like how Enlil is pissed off that man is procreating, and he basically wants to kill off mankind. With this, he wants to destroy him with like disease and shit like that.
Right.
But Enki stops him, Eo, however you want to refer to this person. And Enlil decides on a drought and famine instead. And it reverts. It starts talking about cannibalism, and I forgot where it was in this chapter because I didn't underline anything. I was listening to it mainly.
It was about the Anunnaki, actually, when they took
Yeah.
off, like, because when they decided on the Deluge, also the Anunnaki had to fuck off.
Right.
And so there's a great paragraph that he quotes. The Anunnaki, great gods, were sitting in thirst and hunger. Ninti wept and spent her emotion. She wept and eased her feelings. The gods wept with her and for the land. She was overcome with grief. She thirsted for beer. Where she sat, the gods sat weeping, crouching like sheep at the trough.
Jeez.
Her lips were feverish with thirst. They were suffering from cramp and hunger. So, rereading that today, I'm no longer an atheist. The god that I will be the patron to will be Ninti, because she thirsted for beer. And we're up in fucking space into a little ship. She's like, fuck, I could really use a fucking beer. Not food, not water, not companionship. Fucking beer.
The queen of
So,
ale.
Ninti, I worship you. I
work for
love
her.
you.
You work for her.
You're my muse.
Send me beer. But yeah, you're my god,
Do
Ninti.
you no longer depend on the staff at your studios, Daniel? Or
Well, I would hope that, they're also going to pray daily to Ninti, and she will bless us with beer. and that will cut down on the costs at the studio here.
Right now, I'm praying to the god of seltzer, but maybe that's like Ninty's.
Those are one of those new age gods, Roland.
Yeah, Ninty's fucking 2,500-year-old fucking sorority fucking
the goddess of
dumbass
White
third
Claw.
cousin.
The purveyor of the Hawaiian shirt or something.
Probably a student of Wazoo.
Yeah. Hold on.
They've beflooded the earth, and the Anunnaki flee as well.
That's
Yes,
around.
yes,
This is when they get the biblical version of Noah, who Enki, I guess, warns and tells them to prepare, sort of thing, and much in the same way of the Bible.
God telling Noah to build his ark.
His ark. Get all.
But in here,
Get all the animals, all the dinosaurs.
They call it like a submarine, right?
Yes,
Basically.
I forgot
but like
It's not a submarine. It's called something
submarine
else,
aside, but like
What's another name for it?
going back to the Sumerian / Babylonian myth of this deluge event, Enki was God, as you know, in the
Right. The
Judeo-Christian
god of
Bible,
humanity.
in the whole like I'm going to warn one dude about what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
so he's going to build an ark or whatever.
Or rather,
So I was,
sorry, I mean, like, yes, you're correct, but like in the biblical version of the biblical version, the interpretation of God in the Bible with respect to Enki is he's actually like the distillation of all of those, right? Of all of those.
no,
gods.
right. No, well, they say that Yahweh is,
There we go.
you know, all of the like Sumerian gods playing their different roles. So it's not like contradictory that Yahweh wanted to destroy the earth, then also warn Noah,
Right.
and then decided to renege on the deal.
So that's why I mentioned that to try to make that distinction, because exactly right. Like he's the one who damns them and saves them at the same time. So it can be a bit contradictory without that context.
Skipping to the end of this deluge period, when the like Anunnaki are able to like descend, and it's linked to the biblical account when Noah, you know, roasted some meat and, you know, as a sacrifice to Yahweh. It's interpreted by Sitchin that after the Noah equivalent in the Sumerian or Babylonian account, he landed on Mount Ararat and roasted some meats, and the fucking Anunnaki and Nephilim were so goddamn hungry and like
Enlil sniffed them
thirsting
out.
for the food. They just came down. They're like, all right, you're good. You guys are cool.
Barbecue.
But then Sitchin writes,
Bring dip and chips.
as they landed on Ararat, they saw that this was not so. Earth was still habitable and had to live on it. And to live on it, they needed man.
Right.
And someone like, what were the Anunnaki doing for the thousands of years before man? Like, just like going on crazy like rock star diets of like cocaine and not eating, like
The Niburu diet.
The Niburu diet.
like all of a sudden like they're like, oh, we need man. Like, oh, we can't do it on this planet without them, even though we created them because we were too lazy.
They turned into the
Like-
humanity from Wall-E or whatever, where they're just like fat and floating around, and they have like stubby
It's
arms
like
and
the
legs.
fucking pimp
They
coming
can't take care of
to his
themselves.
like bondroll hoe and like has her in a strangleholds like, but I need you.
Do my
I
best.
love you. On
Right.
the cheek, and then get back to work.
Slap.
As if those are the ground. You know? That's the fucking Nephilim in us, man.
It became a toxic relationship, and they needed us, and we couldn't get enough of that, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean, are you talking about the humans couldn't get enough of it?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I guess
'Cause they don't fucking know any
we're
better.
glutton for punishment.
exactly.
We don't mind being completely threatened. Oh, our lives threatened, but we're like, okay, they're cool with us now.
They're taking care of
I'm
us.
glad we're in their good graces again.
Yep. There you go.
I couldn't live without them, and vice versa. They're pissed at them for doing what they created them to do necessarily,
exactly.
and then they're
And
like,
also,
fuck
like,
them, and then
it's
they're like,
our
wait a minute,
fault
we love
that
them, so-
they gave us, or them rather, free will and independence. Yeah, how dare they?
Mm-hmm.
So,
They're selfish.
oh no.
They're jealous. That's what Yahweh is.
They're-
He's jealous
they're-
God. So I mean,
They're jealous and they love us.
yeah. They hate us. They love us. Then they
You can't
hate us
decide.
again, then
It's
they love
all
us
it's
again.
all the above. We just gotta live with it. Or try.
So, how long did the deluge last in this? According to Sitchin here,
Actually, that's exactly what.
Oh shit! He does break that down.
Biblically, it's 40 days and 40 nights, according to the story with Noah in it. But time-wise, it might have been a little bit longer. I'm just looking at the timeline that's provided in this chapter.
Oh, at the end of 14.
Well, I mean that doesn't really explain. It just says that the Nephilim
ends off at-
aware of the impending tidal wave that will be triggered by the nearing 12th planet, vow to let mankind perish. The deluge sweeps over Earth, abruptly ending the. So before the deluge, the ice age was still
Going down, apparently. Yeah.
So mankind.
So, like,
but it was
Sitchin goes on and
But it was
spends,
already towards
like-
the end of it, though, right? I mean, like the land
Yes.
was still warmer
So
climates.
like, Sitchin says that like the deluge may have been caused by an ice sheet falling off of Antarctica,
right?
and then
Jesus.
That created the
shooting
tidal
up
wave,
like
yeah.
through the Indian Ocean into Mesopotamia.
Right.
And that then he goes on and like talks about how like the Anunnaki would have known this or whatever, but he only talks about like, oh well, Niburu or the 12th planet when it becomes Niburu is at Earth, but it's passing through and passes by Jupiter again, passes by Mars, and somehow they knew that something was going to happen, but he doesn't really go into how like the Nephilim knew this fucking tidal wave was going to fucking happen.
Right.
Which kind of like once again pokes just a couple holes at his already fucking starry night of fucking, plot holes.
This.
Well, when you're reading a book like this, on the first read, it's very intriguing. You don't question too much of it, maybe a few things here and there. But if you've read it in such a close time, I've read it already like this year. I think I've read it like 3 times in the past couple months. Not even thinking about it. And you start nitpicking at every little thing that you see. Because, I mean, you've had to like go through it the third time.
not to do that.
Third time's a charm. And
Absolutely
you're
not
seeing like every little thing that Sitchin does and says and every little nuance.
Just to be the most
Word,
unique.
sentence. Which Roland like pointing out random things, the way like the text is formatted. Is like
when
triggering.
His structure alone, is unique. I just trying to get through this.
But there's a
So
part.
he's saying that like our endeavor to unravel the puzzle of the deluge then focuses on Earth's climatic changes and in particular the abrupt collapse of the ice age from 13,000 years ago. So I think that's around then he goes on to of the many theories advanced by the scientists, which scientists, we don't know who. He only cites one. We are intrigued by the one suggested by Dr. John T. Holland of the University of Maine. He contended that the Antarctic ice sheet periodically breaks loose and slips into the ocean or sea, creating an abrupt and enormous tidal wave. But, okay, cool. All right, so the Antarctic ice sheet periodically breaks off and causes tidal waves. Then why don't we have multiple deluge stories?
Right.
Yeah.
There isn't.
Because if it periodically does this and then it's within human record or human memory, this one being way the fuck back, but we're going to say like perhaps
Well, do you think that
accepting
the ice sheets were like a lot bigger during those times? So like when they would fall off, it would create a bit more of a wave, because now they've melted so much since then, so I mean,
they're virtually gone.
yeah. So I mean, I would imagine if they were during the ice age, they were like
They'd be
crazy
much
big,
larger. Yeah.
No, sure. Like
But to that extent, like you pretty much basically make this into Waterworld with Kevin Costner.
Isn't that basically what this is? It was Waterworld for a couple years or a couple days, I guess.
Well, the thing is, like, it would periodically break off, right? So even if, like, before like human memory, you would think there'd be evidence of these deluge events on the planet that people would have uncovered,
because there'd be cycles
because you have like geologists going through doing their thing, like
warming periods and the cooling
stuff,
periods,
like sedimentary profiles or whatever.
Yeah,
they go, oh wow, flood here, flood here, flood there.
Right.
Let's date them.
It's not,
but I haven't really heard of and not saying like I'm all up on like geological literature or whatever, but you would think that you would hear about this,
right?
Because it's such a weird, fantastic event. And then from a cemetery geology perspective, it'd be a fascinating fucking story.
No, absolutely.
But that's never like come up. Like I took like Sedstrat in college and read fucking stuff about like flooding and stuff and El Nino events, but never heard about like just repeated deluges based off of just sheets of the Antarctic falling off randomly.
Now, again,
It's a cool explanation for the one event.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Is there a recorded one event happening like a flood?
I don't know for a fact, but I mean, like Sitchin has all sorts of examples.
All I know about as far as that it goes,
but mostly it just goes back to the biblical accounts,
and
then extending that to like
other cultures
in Mesopotamia. There's some of these stories that are similar or whatever.
Right. They all point to like around a particular time, and that's it, like one event. Mm-hmm. There's no
right.
It's I guess arguably there are some accounts like in the New World of flood events or whatever, but I'm not sure about the veracity of those claims.
Okay, so we did talk about the fact that the Nephilim were kind of hovering over whenever this deluge happened. We can just move on to the chapter 15, the kingship of Earth. This is the last chapter of the book. And just to read the opening
waste of a
lines.
chapter, I think.
Probably.
But go ahead, Red.
It says the deluge, a traumatic experience for mankind, was no less so for the gods, the Nephilim. And it says here that hovering in their shuttlecraft above devastated Earth, the Nephilim impatiently awaited the abatement of the waters so that they could set foot on solid ground. So basically, the Nephilim were just chilling, waiting for the waters to recede. And again, they weren't prepared for this for some reason. You would think these spaceships were pretty much
they didn't
decked
take
out.
food or water, apparently.
You think they would have had
starving up? Like all these great gods are like, oh, what a bad idea! Oh.
You think they would have had weathermen.
What's funny is like since they were kind of like they gave man their work, so like man was working for them. They were kind of just chilling. Whenever they got into the spaceships, they kind of gave the person beneath them the order to like prepare, bring food, bring water, and then they kind of just did that, giving it to the next person and the next person to think like maybe that person would. So it was kind of like a joke, They would be like, "Oh, you didn't bring the food." You're like, "No, you said so and so's gonna bring the food."
Jim said it was gonna bring it. Yeah. No, Sarah says she's gonna bring the fucking basket and.
Right, and like at some point, as it's the waters are starting to flood, like cover the land, they're like, "Well, do you think there's some place that's clear that we can actually get food from?" And they're like, "I don't know," and then they're just arguing with each other while they're starving up in the fucking.
It's the ancient alien equivalent of living paycheck to paycheck, baby. They can't.
They don't even have like food, like necessarily.
Exactly.
They gotta sit there and just wait it out.
Poor working class aliens, all right. They got bills to pay, and spaceships cost money.
If they had some kind of contact with the 12th planet and Anu, and they could have like a screen where they could see what he's doing. Yeah, like we're hungry, and he's like fucking eating like just meat and shit
off of his gemstone encrusted table.
I can't get to you just now. Like just
you need a space turkey. Yeah.
Sorry, you're breaking up.
We'll get to you as soon as we can.
Sir, that's the sound of you chewing.
Right?
My bad.
No, it's the Wi-Fi.
He has like his like huge stein of beer.
I
and
gotta
he's drinking
go.
it.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. We're
Hey,
passing
yo,
passing by the sun
we
now.
hope you guys make it.
It's a dead spot. No signal.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going through like the things that I marked here.
Yeah, this was kind of a tough chapter to try to like summarize because like as I bitch, I think on tape here where like he basically starts setting up his next book.
Yeah.
Towards the end of it.
I just want to get to what the Nephalim did when the waters receded. Like they pretty much said, man, they're kind of cool with man now because like some of them that did survive, they thought all of them were dead, but obviously that wasn't the case, including animals as well.
They changed their minds.
Oh, and he does
Yeah.
his little cheap attempt at
Bipolar
like
as fuck.
how the Sumerians after the flood inspired the fucking Egyptians and some of the like Indo-European fucking groups.
Right. So basically, it broke them up into 3 regions, right?
Yeah.
So hold on, let me just get that.
If I recall correctly, yeah.
Yeah. So like the Bible, the descendants of Noah. Let me just read this here. It says, descended from and named after the 3 sons of Noah. These were the peoples and lands of Shem, who inhabited Mesopotamia and Near Eastern lands. Ham, who inhabited Africa and parts of Arabia. Japheth, the Indo-Europeans in Asia Minor, Iran, India, and Europe. I think that was the 3, right? Lands of Shem.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it says that these 3 broad groupings were undoubtedly 3 of the regions whose settlement was discussed by the great Anunnaki. Each of the 3 was assigned to one of the leading deities, and one of these was, of course, Sumer itself, the region and the Semitic peoples in the place where man's first great civilization arose. And the other 2 also became sites of flourishing civilizations, and that included the civilization
Yeah, and didn't
of
he
Egypt.
say some stuff in there like regarding Egypt? Like by the time like the floods receded or whatever, it was like right in the like perfect timing to develop Egyptian civilization or whatever.
Yeah,
That's by the time like it started like developing or whatever.
Right. Yeah,
One thing that like he did bring up like Indo-European religions, but then like I can't remember if it's like this book or if I'm just fucking up all the stuff I've been like watching online or Gods of Eden, but there's the whole like India connection because you have all their like gods on like which I don't think Sitchin brought up at all.
Well, he mentioned here that whenever like the god, they were kind of like the whole Tower of Babel situation, wherever they're gonna build up a tower, they set a rocket to like reach the gods. They pretty much gave everyone like different languages. So
They cursed them, yeah.
so they couldn't understand each other.
Right.
And it says right here,
But then like Sitchin fucking fucks that up. Like I'll let you continue in a sec, Ray. But
yeah,
he talked about how the languages are confused, but the written language of folks in all of these areas that came about after the flood can be written or can be linked through the written language to Sumeria, but not like spoken verse.
right.
But it's like, well, then you didn't really baffle their fucking language. They can still like write some shit down, go,
Right,
you know,
the
"You
pictograms.
understand this? And then they say, you'll see. You know.
The pictograms and the cuneiforms. I mean, that would stand to some sort of reason, right? Like these flat images or representations of things as opposed to.
But no, but if it's like cuneiform,
Words.
then it's like all like pictogram, or like pictures,
Well, the Sumerians
like
was-
little symbols and shit, and
Didn't the Sumerian pictograms also like it was a. Was
Were
a
they,
picture
like,
that
word
also meant a
syllables, or were
word.
They like word sounds because I remember like Sitchin in our last series, like he was like, well, if you like take it from like the word syllables to the word sounds or whatever, then the definition changes. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
I don't recall exactly. I'm just trying to sort of, I guess, play devil's advocate to say that okay, look, if like you said, their languages are different, their writing is different. I would only assume
But their
the
writing
only
wasn't different.
Well, I actually thought it was variations of each other's writing.
But you can still like bring
which
it
is
down to the
how
root.
Sitchin was able to trace them back, or rather derivations of previous writings of the Sumerian information. I was just saying that one universal, language between all of them would be just images of symbols, that sort of thing. That's it. So like if they draw,
you're engaging in speculation there.
Absolutely.
Like,
no.
I'm not trying to be shitty.
No, like it's fine.
Really
like
to laugh, but no. This is just like
this is
it's all discourse here.
It's all hypothetical. Yeah. I'm just trying to sort of reason out, and
because
if anything,
if there was like a pictographic representation that was like actually like language based, I think the Sitchin would have like shown like a representation rather than like, oh, here's a crescent shape.
Yeah.
Here's these like other cultures have crescent shape. Well, everyone can see that. It doesn't mean they're all talking about like the same fucking moon god that you're postulating.
No, just.
But when it comes to the written base, apparently there's a lot of links that Sitchin talked about because he's talking like how basically Sumeria was like the mother culture of everything. And he's like, well, here's two examples of it. And they basically share a written language
of sorts, yes, because
it's just fascinating, but he doesn't back it up as much as he should.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Like this should have been like probably a third of the book as it is. Like,
I mean, from the little I can sort of glean from this, the Sumerian language is the reason that, or I suppose like the reasonable way that they were able to sort of pass down that information was that because it was so complicated. Like they used pictograms, they used words. The words were interchangeable.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know, but and mind you, listeners, if you have not read this book, the last 5 chapters takes up such a tiny portion of this overall book. This book is like, my version's like 415 pages, some bullshit, and the last 5 chapters take up about 60 pages of this book.
Yeah, it's pretty brief.
It's a tiny, tiny little fart, to quote Roland. And
just a little squeaker.
This is where Sitchin really brings out, big gun interpretation level bullshit, but he doesn't take the time to defend it. And I have a problem with that. Like, it's a cool story, but as Ray was saying, like, once you go through it again, then again, you start nitpicking. And I'm not sure if it's really nitpicking. It's just like there are some serious problems with this text.
Right.
And yeah, like, just to restate it, first read, yeah, this is a great little narrative. This is tight, makes sense or whatever. But I wonder if folks with backgrounds in like Sumerian archaeology or biblical arc or whatever, if they had their first read through of this bitch, be like, this is nonsense from page 2 because of these 9,000 sources or whatever.
All right, so basically the Nephilim's whole plan is to divide and conquer. So basically they're assigned different regions and they want to make sure that the mankind doesn't get too powerful.
Yeah, so they Tower of Babel fuckers.
Yeah, basically. And it is basically the actual quote here is divide and rule. So it's basically divide and conquer scenario. And they do the Sumerian texts inform us that the Nephilim held lengthy councils regarding the future of the gods and man on earth. As a result of these deliberations, they created the 4 regions. And then, of course, we had mentioned that before. But the 4th one was a quote-unquote holy region dedicated and restricted strictly for... it was the land region was named Tilimon, the place of the missiles. And it was a restricted area where the Nephilim had reestablished their space base after one at Sippar had been wiped out by the Deluge.
Was this when he, like, translated tit?
No, I think that was chapter 14.
Like 9,000 times. Yeah, tits missile.
Yeah. Ha 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 ha. But if it's Sumerian and it's reversible, wouldn't that be missile tits?
Say missile tits?
No.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
That's right. Fine.
And I mean, basically, they were the Nephilim were trying to make have the humans not congregate together. Of course, you unify the people; they become a lot stronger. They might and it said that they
rise up once again, like
they'll
like
rise
the Anunnaki.
up, and you don't want that, right? You divide and conquer.
See, the Anunnaki were smart. They're like, oh no,
and
we've
they
seen this
also,
happen before. Wait a minute.
they talked about paganism here, so the age of paganism began. So there's different gods, and basically it's the way of confusing the
paganism. Oh yeah, what the fuck is all of this then?
It says the solution was to establish many places of worship and to put up in each of them the symbols and likenesses of the correct, quote unquote, the correct gods. So basically that
that old chestnut.
Yes, that's one way of doing it, which we still have today. Various variations of Christianity.
Thou shalt not
Mormonism, Baptism. You want to go through? I think there's only like one form of Islam, right? Yeah, I don't think there's too much.
No, there's some variants because you have like the fucking like Sunnis and the Shia.
Oh, right.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So there are like, and those are like the two main ones that have like caused issues in recent geopolitics.
Gotcha.
But I'm not sure. Like, I'm not super up on like Islam, but if there's two ready casts that like any dumbass American can go like, oh yeah, it's all about their problem. There's probably about like 8,000 other fucking, sects of Islam.
Okay.
Because I assume it's like probably akin to Christianity. The Baptists, the Methodists, the fucking Catholics,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And even in Judaism, you have, like Hasidic Jews and stuff like that.
I mean, so basically the Nephilim created this kind of confusion, again, just to keep man at a certain level. Don't let them rise up. Don't let them unify.
Well, they're trying to keep them.
And that's kind of like also with God in the Bible, Yahweh. That's why they did the whole Tower of Babel thing.
I mean,
kind of confuse mankind and stuff like
the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, confuse man and all that kind of stuff because they were trying to become greater than God.
So they can't unite.
Keep them ignorant.
They don't want them to become like them. No greater than. They don't want them to exalt themselves more than the gods that they're supposed to worship.
Right. Know your place.
Because therein lies the problem. Mm-hmm. And so the end of this book here says, I'm just going to read like the last 3 little chapters here on the last page. It says, ancient tales, even recorded history, recall the ceaseless efforts of men to reach the land, find the plant of life, gain eternal bliss among the gods of heavens and earth. This yearning is central to all the religions whose roots lie deep in Sumer. The hope that justice and righteousness pursued on earth will be followed by an afterlife in some heavenly divine abode. But where was this elusive land of the divine connection? The question can be answered. The clues are there. But beyond it loom other questions. You find a centipede?
Yeah, it was on my foot. I was like, hey, get over there. Felt fuzzy.
Have the Nephilim been encountered since? And what will happen when they are encountered again? And if the Nephilim were the gods who created man on earth, did evolution alone on the 12th planet create the Nephilim? So that segues into his book 2. Dun, 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 dun.
Are we
Law and Order? The Nephilim.
Are we talking SVU?
Well,
criminal intent?
SVN, like the, I don't know.
Oh.
The criminal Nephilim. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah. And of course, in this book, Daniel, I don't know if he does it for you, but he gives us a preview into one of his books, The End of Days, which is the 7th book concluding the Earth Chronicles. And he gives it a little sample of that, which I will not read. Because
he does not.
Yeah. I think this is because the one we have is like the newer version.
Yeah, I don't know. I just found this on the used bookshelf stand. And it was
right.
Oh, was it The End of Days? The past, the future, the forward? Yeah.
Yeah, so at some point, I guess down the line, we'll
get there.
We'll get through some of the books of his, maybe, if we're so inclined to do so. Because there's a whole bunch of other books to check out.
This is
not as I don't know what the word I'm trying to look for here. I don't want to seem mean.
Quite as elaborate.
Sure, elaborate. Let's say that.
That's a really nice word for this book.
Yeah. So we want to just talk about our final thoughts on the book as a whole.
Wait, I thought this was going to be another episode.
That's in depth.
No. That's like more like an in-depth thing.
Okay.
We're just trying to give
I was like, I'm not ready for this.
No way, man.
A follow-up will come later on whenever we're so inclined to like revisit the book and give like more in detailed information about maybe a contradiction of his books, of this book itself and the information he provides. Right now, I just want to give like some quick final thoughts as a whole reading this book. Again, we had to read it a bunch of times to do this. These episodes.
Like I would read like 2 or 3 pages and just have to like blank out and have to go back. It's like there goes 30 minutes.
I told. I mean, you guys know. Like I had to actually have the book reading. I was reading the book and listening to the audiobook simultaneously because that's the only way I could keep from drifting off at some point. Whenever he's like giving off all this information, like I needed someone in my ear and my eyes looking at the words to kind of like keep my attention, because if not, reading it the first time when I did years ago, it was rough because I had to I was going through it like little by little here and there, and I didn't even read it in one consistent way. Like I would read a chapter here, months down the line, and another chapter, blah blah blah. And then I got the gist of what was happening, but not as a whole. So like reading it these 3 times this year was quite the experience and the task. And it's just as it took us a long time to do communion, it took us a long time to do this one, but I think we're getting better, a little bit more efficient at reading these books and talking about them.
It's nice to understand that it's just like going through this, that the problem isn't with us kind of thing. Like, wait, am I like just not understanding this, or why can't I keep up? No, like this is...
Yeah, we're confused for a reason. We're just not sure what that reason is.
Hard to run through Sitchin's thought processes as he organized, or rather doesn't organize.
For me personally, it's a problem with his organization. If he had presented the information or the story ahead of, like before, and then tried to prove it or give his information to prove that theory later on in the book, I probably would have preferred that.
Saying this book has a loose structure is being generous.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It is interesting. Yeah.
I would imagine that any sort of official scholar of this information
absolutely hate this.
Or this subject would have to organize their thoughts a little bit better than just like spewing them on the page and then just trying to show or prove like how much knowledge they have from all the research they've done before. And again, not in a very nice package for the
ultimately, I wish that Sitchin would have been more transparent when he was like switching in between, let me talk about the Sumerians.
Exactly.
And then switch to the Babylonians. But he'd do it breathlessly in some places. And
it really throws you off.
And it just kind of sucks because I want to know some of the sources that he was citing a little bit more in depth, because I think it came out of this episode how I grabbed that copy of Kramer's The Sumerians that he cites often through the book. And already with my brief skim through some of the pages, Kramer has disagreed with some of Sitchin's discussion. So it makes me want to dive even further and go, okay, what else has Sitchin fucking, cited or whatever? And then kind of ground truth that, because if this is one dude he reputes to be an expert and then he misrepresents him or cherry picks him, which I think he has done, won't go into why. What else is he doing with these texts?
Right.
And in addition to the Kramer bullshit, I have read some of the good book to try to, read some of these passages he's citing or whatever. And I either can't find them because he only goes, oh, in Psalms they say this, but he doesn't cite the passage. Or when he cites the passage, it's a different take than what he cites. So
I don't know if this was explained at some point, but did Sitchin come up with his theory and then research based on that, or was he just doing research and then that after the research he came up with the theory?
I don't know if those are clear. Yeah, because
I mean there'd be a serious problem if he had this theory already and then he's trying to prove that.
I mean, arguably he did, in that first chapter.
Right, when he talks about
when I was a child in school, I questioned my teacher. Didn't Nephilim mean those who came down or whatever?
Right,
yeah. But I mean, that wouldn't necessarily mean that the fact that the Anunnaki or the Nephilim created man was the case. I mean, at this point, if he's just going through biblical classes, he would just know that the Nephilim, the sons of God, quote unquote, the Nephilim, came down and mated with human women and stuff like that.
Well, sure, but that'd be enough but with his, getting told, no, it's not what you think.
Right.
And if that stuck with him, then maybe he had, so maybe this whole little tale is what made this book. And we should blame that fucking nun for slapping him on the hands with a ruler.
Giving him a shitty answer. Yeah, maybe.
I could look at the beginning of the book. Do y'all remember what she told him?
No.
Or did they mention that? I mean, I could look myself.
I don't.
Hold on. I just want to...
The Hebrew original named them Nephilim.
Nephilim.
The teacher explained them giants, but I objected.
Didn't mean literally.
Mean literally those who were cast down, who had descended to earth. I was reprimanded and told to accept the traditional interpretation.
Do as I say and not as you think.
Do as I say and as you think. Yeah. Very good. That's
not as you want to do.
It seems like that kind of mentality holds up today as well.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that his
very Christian of you
dedication to the book should have been to Sister Francine. Fuck you, bitch.
This goes to you cunt.
Final thoughts or
I dedicate this
Nephilim also
Earth
means
series.
go fuck yourself, Sister Francine.
Right.
That's what I've gathered in my thoughts. Yeah.
Roland, I really like this.
What do you think about this book in general?
This is a very fucking... I've never read anything like this. I mean, from his format to his subjects to his sources, the closest thing I've ever come to any of this, and I've always been interested in it, that is to say, the ideas of trying to interpret mythological fucking beliefs with, equate them to the development of civilization, to the origins of humanity, that sort of thing. I mean, I've just always thought this was cool since the episodes of Ancient Aliens, kind of silly shit.
Yeah.
It was something I obviously did not take seriously, but I always wanted to sort of think or sort of get a chance to look at where these ideas came from, or why would they think these, specifically outside of that stupid show, for example, because that thing it's fun, but it's that's as far as any of that goes. It's as entertaining as any show would have been in the first. This is a more of a serious attempt at tying all that together into a cohesive chronology, a literal history. I wouldn't say it's a good one, or rather a very strongly supported one, but I do like the scope of what he tried to do here. I have a lot of problems with it. It's appreciative, because this isn't something you just pull out of. I mean, it is something you kind of pull out of your ass, but the thing is, that's a lot of ass to tie together. I don't know, to find a way to turn it into a single cohesive narrative. Mm-hmm. It's just probably one of the more difficult things that I've read, and I say that having read tons of fucking like geology and fucking physics and just other bullshit, science, actual research, tons of. I say that reading fucking like French anthropologists. That shit is a goddamn mind fuck. And this is still kind of. I mean, I don't attribute that like, or rather say that it's exactly the same, but in the way he, again, like to the scope of what he tries to do with all of this is pretty admirable. It's fucking ridiculous though.
All right. Well, what would you recommend that someone actually read this book if they're interested in the topic of, say, ancient astronaut theory or whatever?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we've said it numerous times over the recording of these episodes is that it's fun to read first time around, but if you're trying to
get your head into it, you're gonna need to do a lot of backup.
You would need to go through like other sources that he sources like Daniel mentioned.
Well, and
it would help
even without looking at the other sources. Just but I found myself like backtracking a few pages here and there, just going like, wait a minute, you got here.
Yeah, where are you?
I've been following along, but wait, apparently I didn't. So I jump back 2 pages or so, read it again, and then end up like still as confused with his like conclusion.
Yeah,
right.
And that isn't necessarily a problem with the information, or rather what he's looking at so much as like his thoughts.
Actually,
well, I think it's more of a problem of the way he explains it. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. Like Sitchin, he jumps around a lot with everything. And I think
do you want to go next, Ray, or
well, I've kind of said some of like the things the problems I've had with this book, and it's more about his organization. And I mean, as far as like,
would you recommend this to anybody?
I would. I mean, I recommend it to you guys to read it, but it was for a specific reason. But I mean, I've recommended. Yeah, I've recommended it. I've recommended this book to people to read. But again, I read it in. I read it on the notion that if you just get the gist of this story, like what he's proposing,
the source material,
as far as like aliens, Nephalim came down. You have the Anunnaki here. They didn't want to work or doing the hard work that they were doing, mining on Earth for gold. They created mankind to be that person to do their work for them, and then. That's basically it. I mean, if you want to get delve deeper into it, read the book. That idea interests you, go ahead and read the book.
This is sort of like a hell of a crash course in Sumerian and Mesopotamian culture.
I feel it could turn someone off. Just even the first couple of like after chapter 1, you go to chapter 2, and I
think if I were to go to somebody with this sort of like content, and I was going to recommend a book, I would say maybe like Gods of Eden would be the one I would introduce.
Well, yeah, that's probably the one I enjoy the most. As far as like we're talking about. But this is a good,
like with 12th Planet. When I go through this book again, and then probably like 2 or 3 more times I read it after that, I'm gonna have some serious problems with it. But
well, I mean, in the order that I read these books was Chariots of the Gods was the first one I read. And it was a very exciting time because Ancient Aliens had kind of come out. And then I realized, I can actually get my hands on these books that they're talking about.
Yeah.
And then I raided the gallery. I raided the Barnes & Nobles. Any of the bookstore I came across, I would like just grab what I could.
I miss that place. Subject, I want to go back.
But this was over like 15 years ago that this was the case.
Right.
And I came upon... I've heard about Zecharia Sitchin's book. I hadn't, like I said, I read bits and pieces of here. I got the gist of what it was about, and I was, okay, that's cool. But then I read Gods of Eden, but that took me about a year to read because, again, I only read bits and pieces here and there. I read it in the order, but I mean, I was doing other shit. I was working, all that kind of stuff, and I had other things to read as well. But Gods of Eden was probably the one I would tell people most about because it seemed like it was the way that William Bramley came up with this theory, which was very interesting, is that he was researching war. Then he came up with this theory by doing that research. And I thought that was an interesting way that he approached the book itself. But I would recommend people to read this book. Again, if you're interested in the subject, it's something that it's a book. I think
I would too. It's just
I think it's a book that's held up over time in the lore of ufology, like all that kind of. This would be a book that you should read if you're interested in that subject. So,
sure.
But yeah, that's about it for that. What about you, Daniel?
It's a cool ass book, man. Like it really is, but maybe read it once.
Yeah, once through would be good.
Because, like, yeah, as we've expressed over the course of the last 3 episodes, like over the rereads, you just find problems with it, and then
it's pretty rough
during this process, I thought that like with like Communion and some of the other Valley Strange episodes that we've done, that my academic brain was like reignited to analyze this stuff.
Right.
Actually, 12th Planet, because I was like, wait a minute, what's your source there? Wait a minute. You kind of jumped. Like, wait a minute, you're not talking about what you were just talking about. You're talking about something completely different and saying it's the same thing.
Right. Without
if you
prefacing.
go even on a first read, if you're hypercritical, this book has a ton of issues.
Right.
But if you read through it, even with a like quasi-critical mind, like the first read through, like because at the point where I read 12th Planet, I had already read a bunch of, shit. I read Communion and some other books.
You can get the basic idea of what Sitchin was trying to accomplish here without.
I think I read Gods of Eden before I read 12th Planet.
Okay. I was going to ask you.
But I'm not sure about the timeline on that. I just got into like the last year, just like dived in, like, let's read weird shit. Fuck it, And
Hence, for those people that either want to read weird shit and either just don't have the time, you can listen to our podcast and we can give you the gist of like most of the weirdness,
the general
weirdness,
gist of
the weird,
books.
Because these books are fun to read, and most people most people wouldn't even buy these books and attempt to read them. But you know what? We've been reading weird shit. It's fun to read.
It is interesting. Shit. Like it is a bit of a mind fuck to wrap your head around. But like, yeah, you come out of this like with a lot of, nifty thoughts. Like, and again, like it's a crash course on a lot of different mythologies that I was kind of slightly weak on, and now it's like, okay.
Yeah. So would I recommend?
I want to know more.
Like reading it? Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Would I recommend fully trusting it? Absolutely.
No. Like, I think we can unanimously agree.
This is a straw man that I set up. It's made for a funny joke.
I don't know if like you'd agree with this term, Daniel. This is almost like quasi fiction, even how he runs with this.
I thought that we had put a ban on the term quasi.
I know, that's why I'm just.
And you're bringing it back, Roland.
That's right. Fuck, no, only for Daniel. Only for Daniel.
I don't think he's attempting at fiction at all.
No, he's not. He is, but like again
I don't think that this work should be described as fiction at all.
Quasi
because
ish.
Quasi.
No, at all.
Well,
because this author posits this is what happened.
Yes.
And even though we have problems with his knowledge claims,
right?
He is very genuine, saying like, this is what went down. We are descendant from these aliens fucking around and being lazy and then making us.
To me, it's. I say that because again, like his main theories, is to take a literal interpretation of all of these belief systems, and as I understood them,
and that literal interpretation
is not fiction to him at all,
but it still results in people,
right? But
and how it came about. So
my joke comes about is that
I don't think at all of this is like fiction to him.
Well, no, it's not. It's not to him. I'm saying in like the way I think about it. Excuse me.
In general, no. I think this should be approached objectively as someone trying to discern the origins of humanity.
Yes.
Through
But from the standpoint of the reader,
I don't think those should be invalid. I don't think that's invalid in any sense.
It depends on your own personal belief as far as that goes. For me, the reason I don't necessarily run with that is because I think these mythologies there's no way you can take them literally. Like, they're personifications of ideas and like forms of nature, that kind of stuff. Like,
you could say that's kind of like your opinion necessarily. Like, because I mean, some people might believe they are real.
Sure. Again, this is just my silly little joke about it, because I don't think there was a literal Zeus out there or a literal Enlil or Enki or Ea. I think there might have been representations of what could have possibly happened of an actual person out there, maybe. But I don't think that was them.
Okay. You think maybe
allow me to elaborate on my silly pune.
The Sumerian myth of these gods maybe is not the oldest. Maybe there's like an older one out there.
Sure. Why not?
One that's not recorded?
Well, like you'd said how this ends, it doesn't really explain where the Anunnaki...
well, not yet. We haven't gotten to the other books. Maybe he does explain it.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah, but then even then,
the questions are
going back to Chateau Hayuk and Göbekli Tepe, which I'll always fuck up that name. These are archaeological sites that have been discovered within the last 30 years, at the earliest, that are displaying high forms of complexity and all this sort of bullshit. And
sorry,
a book I picked up today was actually talking about things. I was like, I sent it to you guys. It was like Göbekli Tepe and the Garden of Eden or something like that. But it's like, I think the tale is to localize perhaps the Garden of Eden in Turkey rather than modern day Iraq.
All right,
which is fucking fascinating, but. Overall, like, would I recommend anybody as not an insult to their intelligence or anything? I would totally recommend 12 Planets to anybody. Like, just it's a fun book, and if you buy it, you buy it. But there are a ton of problems with it, which we discussed.
Free your mind.
But it's a cool idea, Yeah, free your mind. Let's start looking at the weird, because. Getting to Bigfoot on the grassy knoll takes a long time, takes some steps.
We'll get there.
I hope we get to a Bigfoot book at some point.
Oh, I'm sure we'll get there, dude. It's just finding the right one.
Right on.
Because we've done a good, I think, not we, but like you guys, because this is the second book of the Strangers covered, and there's been three or four at hand now.
This is the third one.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, because I was thinking about that one episode of like the haunted schools or places in the valley. Because y'all were talking about that one book.
Yeah, but that wasn't necessarily.
But it wasn't like a book of the strange.
Yeah, it's just a resource.
Michelle remembers communion, and then this book.
Right. And I think as we've gone through the books so far, like we've gathered, I guess I would say I'm a bit more comfortable doing these, a bit more on a regular schedule. Better.
Like I'm looking forward to the Gods of Eden episode, because that book I think that we'll find will also be a challenge to reread. But I think the 12th, and we've talked about this a bunch, but like the 12th has like pushed us a little bit.
Right.
Like it's a difficult book. There's a lot of weird zigs and zags it takes, and a lot of interesting claims. And fortunately, I think that Bramley does a better job of homework than Sitchin does. But I've only read it once, so.
I've only read it once as well, so.
I'm new to the whole shebang, so it's going to be some fun.
All right, so let's bring this episode to a close now. Books of the Strange, Volume 3, Part 3 of the 12th Planet. I am your host, Ray, and...
This is Roland.
And Pacific Northwest Studios.
apologizing for the rambling I conducted in this episode. This is Daniel.
All right. Well, we'll see. Next Valley Strange episode will be Ghost Stories. Very lighthearted episode.
Light. Super light.
Yes.
No deep dives.
No deep dives. But we will discuss different types of ghosts. And possibly
We're not going to not come correct. We're not going to go deep dive as crazy as this.
And we're going to try and correlate type of ghosts with that ghost story. So we'll see like how those work out. But yeah. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, see, because I have a hypothesis how La Llorona is the inner sog.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Little midgets come into my house. Hey, it's ridiculous. I had some kind of a rectal probe. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
And listeners, you haven't heard Roland for a little bit because apparently he's trying to get comfortable or look for something.
What are you doing?
Oh, there was like a centipede or something crawling around my chair.
There was a bug on his chair.
A big ass.
A centipede.
It's a big ass one. I was like, hey, cool. I don't want to squish it.
Hey, cool.
As you freak out and adjust everything on your chair. Like, no, get it off me.
I don't see them very often. Excuse me. If I scream randomly, that's why. It's on my. Ah! Sorry.